Whatever you've been through, whatever you are going through now, if it's not pleasant, I'm sorry, but it doesn't change the fact that you are worthy of love, respect, and success in your life. And that hole that likely is in your heart right now, it can only be filled by God. God says in the book of Jeremiah, if you search him, he will show you things that you can't possibly fathom. That's waiting for you.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Audacious Faith Podcast, where we have the audacity to believe that God put us on this earth to do more than just to exist, but to make a huge, huge difference in the world. And I love talking with difference makers. I don't know if you've been watching the podcast lately, but we've had some great guests. And today is absolutely the same. A man who I had the privilege of meeting probably just about a month ago. And we're going to definitely be doing some things together. We've got some events coming up together in the near future. Let me tell you a little bit about Steve Wormer. He is a proven leader. He's a certified leader with and trainer with the John Maxwell team. He also has the You Are, as you can see in the background, the You Are Worthy network and the You Are Worthy podcast, where he has a whole system that he teaches there. Very exciting. He's a family man. He's a pastor. He's led ministries. He's actually led corporations as well. And so a lot of experience that he brings to the table. Been married now, I believe, for, I think I saw 29 years, which is amazing. That's fantastic. So a great example in that area. And he's got children, and I just love what he's doing, and I want to find out more about it today. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Jay, I'm excited to be with you. Welcome, everybody. Good to be with you.
Steve, start off for those who don't know you. Maybe just give a little bit of background. I mean, how does Steve end up getting in the place where he is, end up being in ministry, end up being someone who's trying to share God's truth and has a passion for God's truth? I mean, I'm sure you probably didn't start off that way. So maybe a little testimony of the journey on how God took you from where you were to now.
Oh my goodness. What a great question right out the gate. Let me make sure I understand you right, Jay. So are you wanting to know how I got into the ministry or how I came to the Lord or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I mean, how you kind of started as a childhood. I don't know if faith was a part of your childhood or not. How did the Lord kind of grab you, call you, and get you in this direction?
I got you. So my joke about that is, yes, early age, I was pedestrian.
Hmm.
People don't always catch that, but hopefully I set that up to where there's some laughter to it. As a youngster, wasn't a big church background. We would do, the typical Easter service, Christmas service. Maybe when my folks were really hitting their stride, maybe we would go 8 or 10 times a year, a little bit of involvement with youth group, kind of hit and miss. But really, kicking the tires would be probably an overstatement of the journey as a youngster. Uh, I had some baggage, like we all have. I had some baggage from a broken home, some abandonment from where my parents got divorced, and my dad chose not to be involved consistently. That led me to having some bitterness and unforgiveness towards him. I know you didn't ask that, but I'm trying to get this to where you want it to go. And I just really wasn't seeking God as a youngster. I was trying to figure out life and why it didn't make sense on my own. And we all know how that goes when we try to figure out how it goes on our own. And so all
Yes.
that unprocessed emotions, anger, all of that just continued to accelerate in my teen college years and even really in my 20s quite a bit. Um, and we can get into that more in detail if you want to later, but just was not seeking God for sure. Got married, 96. We tried to start a family. That's a whole nother conversation. Maybe we'll get into, maybe we won't. But it was really in the early 2000s where things started to change. And typical of God, he lets you go through some challenging seasons that he hopes will drive you to your knees and seek him. And I was I was stubborn. I was a hard nut to crack for sure. Uh, but after experiencing financial collapse, and then a short while later, experiencing basically, we're really hitting it right out the gate here.
Love it.
That my wife was 48 hours away from calling a divorce attorney.
Mm,
God was getting my attention. And I'll give you the short version for now, and then
sure.
I'll let you ask more questions if you want. But basically, when she made that, she wasn't threatening. She was going to do it if I didn't repent of some things. We saw a marriage counselor. We called some folks that my wife knew that had become Christians about 4 years earlier,
Okay.
and we started cracking the Bible open. We got into some Bible studies with two or three people each, in our separate Bible studies. And we both surrendered, and she was baptized. Well, I was baptized first, and I actually turned around and baptized her. I can remember it vividly, March 14th, 2004,
Mm.
21 years ago. And so that's, I don't know, maybe that was a long version after all of how we came to God for sure.
I love it. I love it. And thank you for sharing a lot of that. I think what I love about your story, and especially your willingness to share it right off the bat, is let's face it, most people that are watching this, they had a rough time of it as well. We've all had those times, those different journeys. And I believe that I think there's a misconception that people have about people that follow the Lord that, it was always smooth. God just made it smooth sailing. But I was looking actually at a phrase this morning that I think kind of fits in a great way what you were saying, and that is this: discomfort is a down payment on growth. And without all of that discomfort, I'm wondering, because you had a lot of it, what it sounds like. I mean, you were to the point you said you were literally 2 days away from losing your marriage, losing pretty much everything if something drastically wasn't going to change. Do you think, do you see now how God really used those difficult times to start shaping you the way He wanted to? Because otherwise, you probably would have been comfortable enough to stay there. Do you think?
Well, you would hope not, but I've learned. You look at somebody's life and you think, gosh, that's got to be their rock bottom.
Mm,
But there was 5, 6, 7 incidents before the one I told you about where she almost made that call that you would have thought those were my rock bottom. So
yeah.
I've learned not to be the evaluator of what somebody's rock bottom is. But I do totally agree that God uses those dark seasons and challenging times for us to call on Him, and say, this is too much for me. I can't do this. I surrender. And he got me in that posture finally, and I've not been perfect at it, which I know nobody else is either.
Of course.
But it's where my heart wants to stay is, God, this is yours. This is your battle. I'm giving it to you. What's that quote that they say? Give the things that you hold in your hand, hold them loosely, or else they're going to hurt worse when God takes them away.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying about how a person's rock bottom, at least from the outside, what it looks like, often is not. I've seen that in a lot of interviews. I know you interview a lot of people too, and you probably run into this, I would guess, as well. Where, I mean, I had one guy that I interviewed who's a pastor now, a few weeks ago, and literally, I mean, he had a weekend where he almost died twice in the weekend. Once in a very serious accident that he miraculously walked away from, and then there was a drive-by shooting where bullets went through the house that he was in. And
Yeah.
and he's amazed to this day that that did not actually get him to wake up, despite the fact that he had a church background, he grew up in the church. He even was like sharing street ministry when he was 9 years old. And yet here he was now, and that didn't even do it. It wasn't until that he realized had a drug addiction so bad that he was stealing from his own mother right in front of him that he
Mm.
realized, wow, what in the world have I become? Um, the rock bottom, you're right, isn't really rock bottom for people. So in this case for you, it was. your wife and your relationship and your family, that was a turning point for you. That was the thing that was the most important that got you to kind of know you had to do something.
Yeah, it was definitely I don't know what you want to call that, the last straw or the last event.
Hmm.
Um, at that time, Jay, just for context, and this may lead into another discussion, maybe not, but we had not started our family at that point. We had had five miscarriages in 6 years.
Ooh.
And this is kind of this period of time that I'm talking about now, 2003, 2000, late 2003, early 2004, kind of a lull in our trying to start our family.
Sure.
So the timing of all that and how the enemy works, that's all kind of interesting too.
Five miscarriages in 6 years. That wow. That do you mind going into that just a little bit? Because I know that's probably a very hard subject, but I know that there's people out there. I don't know a lot that have experienced to that degree, but they've experienced some miscarriages. How did that really just, I mean, that had to be extremely difficult.
Well, this may be a good place for us to camp even after I describe this, because as crazy as that sounds, we were just getting started.
Mm,
It gets more intense than even that. Yeah, I think looking back, Jay, on the miscarriages, obviously, you know, I can only give you my perspective. Obviously, much, much more difficult and emotional from my wife's perspective. And I didn't have the emotional or the spiritual, obviously, maturity at 28, 29 years old, 30, when these things were happening, uh, to really give her the support she needed. But I remember from my perspective, I don't know how many of your audience will remember this. Do you remember the attempt Sprint made a few years ago to go to Nextel, the handheld? They were part cell phone, part walkie-talkie, and
yeah,
they were great when they worked, but
right.
they didn't work in a lot of places.
Sure.
But I remember the first couple of times, obviously the first time that she got pregnant, we had maybe I worked for a corporation then, fairly large, and I had maybe 15, 20 people that I had direct contact with on Nextel. And I'm blowing that thing up. I'm gonna be a dad, I'm gonna be a dad.
Oh, wow.
And I remember when it didn't happen, obviously that same enthusiasm to let people know that it didn't work out, that was a different type of phone call.
Sure.
And then after a couple of those, you're a lot slower to celebrate it, to see how it's going to turn out. So there was definitely some devastation there. And looking back, even revisiting with you, I wish I would have been more mature. Not that I was awful, but just would have had the tools to help my wife, if that makes sense.
I would think that, I mean, obviously you were dealing with things yourself from the feelings, but as you're mentioning, I mean, it must have been just excruciating for her. And I would think it would be just hard to even understand what she was feeling. I know you're looking back going, wow, I wish I would have, been better, but wow, I mean, what do you say to someone, like that, especially when they're carrying um, five times. And I'm noticing in your bio now that you have three children. So amazing the perseverance. How did you keep trying after five times like that?
Well, I think, just to go back a half a step to what you said, I was dealing with my own emotions of it. What do you say?
Sure,
We didn't have God in the picture. So I didn't even know to lead her in
sure.
prayer. Um, and God's timing's perfect. We get all that. But yeah, fast forwarding, I think I'd have to really think back. The last miscarriage may have been like 99, 2000. And that's like I was saying before, we became Christians in early 2004. What happened was maybe in 2000, yeah, 2006, we
Okay.
started praying. Of course, we've been Christians for a couple of years by this point.
Okay.
We started praying about adoption.
Mm.
And sure enough, that was tested right out the gate when somebody came to us and, oh, I know about a situation. Da, da, da. Are you interested in learning more? And we're like, oh my gosh, we do need to go home and pray about this even more
Yeah.
intensely, you know? And anyway, we did that. But even that passing conversation, which is really all it was God saying, are you guys sure you really want to do this? And if you are, you're going to need to be on your knees early and often
Hmm.
for the journey I'm about to take you on. And boy, we had no clue what we were about to embark on. It was the ride of our lives, trust me.
Emotional. That could be, I mean, adoption is such a wonderful thing for people to do it, but yeah, it can be a real roller coaster where, there's still parents involved, there's still family involved, there's, disappointments and yeah, I've heard a lot of that myself. So yeah, that's definitely tough. So the walk to God after all of this, the walk to God. How you mentioned earlier that your wife, she wanted you guys ended up having some Bible studies with people that you had met. Um, how influential, I mean, how did God do it? How did God kind of grab you guys out of the ashes that you were in and start pulling you in that direction?
Well, the scriptures cut, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I knew some of the big stories in the Bible, but I didn't know the really piercing, life-changing potential of some of the scriptures. Obviously, the red letters of Jesus,
Yeah,
the words of Paul, so rich, but so sharp.
yeah,
And I'm like, I think a combination of really digging in for the first time. I mean, let's really get in past some of the surfacey stories that
sure.
everybody teaches in vocation Bible school, right? Let's really dig in. And I think that changed our lives. But for the first time, maybe thinking back, a group of people, a community of believers, flawed, imperfect, because that's all that God has to work with in the local church, right?
Right.
But they're intentional. They're taking this serious. Like they're following what Jesus says. They're meeting together,
Hmm.
like Acts 2 talks about. They're breaking bread together. They're confessing sin together. They're praying together. They're encouraging one another daily. Like, oh, wow, never seen this before. I think the combination of the word and the saints doing their very best to live it out, you couldn't deny the impact that God was making.
I love what you're bringing up because I know in my own story, it's similar that when I first went to church, I didn't even go to church as a kid at all. So until like 16 when we were invited. And the only reason my family decided to go was because of the quality of the life and the friendliness of the life of, well, now my wife's parents at the time. We weren't married then. And that's how we got invited. And when I went, church was new to me, and obviously the pastor was up and was sharing every week. But what really drew my attention was the people, the way they interacted, the way that I saw over the course of the next months, wait a minute, they're not just talking about this, they actually believe this, is actually a part of their life. I think without that, I don't listen as much. If
Mm.
I didn't, it was what I saw in their life that caused me to believe it was valid. Because if what I saw was, okay, you say you believe this, but I don't believe you by the way that you're living, by the way that you're acting, then I probably would have dismissed it. So that's kind of what you saw too. You saw, wait a minute, they actually seem to believe this and live by this. Not perfectly, obviously, but
Yeah, and I was prideful for sure. I mean, like it wasn't like I just jumped in and started going to church every Sunday and every Wednesday or
sure.
whenever there was an event. I was slow. Um, I'm because of my past, I'm a little mistrusting, a little bit of an introvert, even though I'm a pastor now, as crazy as that is. It's like I didn't jump all in. The Bible studies were great. It's a small group of people. I felt fairly comfortable with them. I'm seeing their life and how they're treating us. I'm seeing how they treat each other. I'm not seeing the entire body. But we went a couple of times. I think we went one. I remember going to a specific event during the winter time when we were studying. And I think it was during that event, which was at the church building, that I got to meet a lot more people. And then I started going more regularly. But it was a process for sure. But yeah, you just could not deny the power of them trying to live it out the best they could.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned something very interesting as well. You mentioned about being an introvert and being a pastor. And I know that I spent much of my life, my story was I was definitely an introvert. Now I've kind of allowed God to change my story and say that I'm an extrovert with introvertish tendencies, because that's kind of who I was. But God, I'll still walk into a room and my natural default will often be to be an introvert, and I have to shake myself and say, no, that's not who God wants me to be. I have to go in here and I need to talk to people. But a lot
Sure.
of leaders and speakers that actually do very well, isn't it crazy that they're naturally introverted?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the spirit
Mhm.
inside of us saying, okay, be out of yourself, be loving, engage with everybody you possibly can. But I think it's also, and I can't, I'd be interested to know your response on this. Like our fellowship, we don't leave right after the service is over. There's some deep fellowship and prayer request and deep conversation going on. Sometimes, I mean, our service usually ends at noon. Sometimes I don't get out of there till 1:30.
Yeah,
And yes, I'm hungry and just like everybody else. But like after lunch, I'm done. Like I need a nap. If I don't get one as much anymore, but I enjoy the Sunday afternoon nap or watching a football game. I don't want any phone calls. I don't want to do any work. I need a couple hours to decompress. My joke about the football and the nap is, well, my goal is the football, but then I end up taking a nap while it's on.
yeah,
But that's the way I'm wired because I've put all that energy into folks. I'm
sure.
drained, but I don't think that's unusual for a pastor at all.
No, I think it's pretty usual, but those conversations, what you're mentioning, I mean, here you are, you're done at noon, right? But you said it's 1:30 till you're out of there. But
Yeah.
how valuable, it really, for many years probably, I think I was not, as I look back now, I didn't learn to be as approachable because I didn't have nowhere near as many conversations after church as I do now. And it's not
Mhm.
that I pursue those conversations. It's that people, they hear something, they whatever, and then they feel comfortable enough to come up and say, hey, I've been thinking about this and talk. And then sometimes we're like, you know what, let's go over here and sit down for a second. And I'm thinking, I'm realizing just how important those conversations are. When a person goes to someone like yourself who's leading from the front, and then you're willing to care enough to actually, it's not just, hey, sit down here and listen to me and now go home and leave me alone. You're actually willing to see them and actually hear them and actually engage with them and all of that, because aren't those some of the most valuable moments that we actually get?
Yeah, those times are great. And and sometimes it's 1:30, sometimes it's 12:30. It just depends on the
Sure.
need.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll give you an example. And usually what happens is, two, three people that know you the best, they want to, talk about the message for a minute, and then they want to talk about what's going on in their lives. And uh I want to always remind them, hey, there's somebody back here visiting that I want to talk to. I'll come back to you, that type thing.
Right.
But we had a sister in our congregation that her home unfortunately burned to the ground last week, the weekend before last, and then she was in an auto accident 5 days later. And understandably, she wasn't at church the Sunday, it was like the next day after the fire. And then she didn't make it, for Wednesday service either, understandably. And it's like, and we prayed over her Sunday morning, but I hadn't got that one-on-one time with her. And of course, the church is great, about the rest of the people surrounding her with love and encouragement, physical needs too, and everything. But I wanted to just share my compassion and my empathy for her and what happened. Do you need anything?
Yeah.
Just because the Spirit's working and that's the right thing to do, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And yeah, you mentioned as well that the people of God need to, sometimes they don't think this way. You mentioned the people that talk to you all the time and you see all the time, and there may be that visitor, there may be that new person. Do you feel that sometimes we need to train people to think that way? It's like, wait a minute. I mean, not only do they need to make sure that they made a connection, but allow me that time to make that connection because without it, there may not be a second chance. That may be the only time we get.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating conversation because depending on what your church's methodology is and visit and all the interaction there, you know, that interaction is crucial. Like you said, you may not get a second chance. I've had to have that conversation. You're right. There probably should be a training on it. I've had to have that conversation like we need to stop right now because this may be the only chance I get to say to the person I was on the back row that's about to leave. You can, if you're watching, and our sanctuary is not that big, so I can see kind of everything going on, and I see the one exit out. Like I've got to get over there somehow, and
Right.
I hit the mark about 70% of the time, quite honestly, because I never want to be rude if there's two or three people waiting to talk to you, and we don't do. By the way, I don't go to the door and waiting for people to leave.
I don't
I'm
either.
amongst the people fellowshipping,
Right.
is kind of our way. But yeah, it's a good conversation for sure.
Definitely. And like a fellowship, I'm sure if you have like, time after occasionally where there's food or something. And I had a man who we actually knew before, and we knew him in a school situation where my wife worked. And then out of the blue, we hadn't seen him in 8, 9 years. And the Lord was just, he had gone through all kinds of things, hit rock bottom. I mean, literally was he actually had to be like mentally hospitalized for a little while. And
Hmm.
and then so now all of a sudden one Sunday he's like, I need to go to church. I need to go to church. Wait a minute. And it was my wife who invited me. He goes, I know they're pastor and wife, and she invited me. Where was that church? And he was looking it up and he found it. He comes walking in. I go to walk up to him just to introduce myself, and he says his name. I didn't even recognize him. It had been so long. I
Hmm.
mean, he had gray hair now and totally different. And the next week, there he came, and there was a fellowship afterwards. And unfortunately, it was one of those rare occasions where we needed to leave right away. And so he went to go back there, but because he didn't really know anybody, he's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable, so he left. Now he did end up coming back. Now he's a member of the church. He's a regular. He's even on the worship team. All the kind of things. Um, but how important is it? Like I've told people, and maybe you train the same. Realize, hey, you may be shy, but somebody needs you to care. I mean, how important? If somebody's going back in a fellowship, they should not be sitting by themselves at a table. It just shouldn't happen, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, it should not happen whatsoever. Our church is pretty good with that kind of thing, as far as not making people feel alone and sitting by themselves and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's something that takes practice, and you have to be definitely conscientious of it for sure. Because churches can get stuck in their own routine for sure.
Yeah, I'll sit with the people I'm comfortable with, the people I know, the people in. I mean, we have to go out of our way.
Mhm.
Now,
I think the word that comes to mind, Jay, is we got to be intentional.
yeah, that's a great word, definitely. Um, Now, the you are worthy, and you have a framework that you do of you are worthy the worthy method, I believe it is, and that's the title of your network that you've created. I'm thinking there's got to be a story behind it, and so I'm going to kind of let you share what that might be.
It's all fairly recent, actually. At least the development of the network. If you go back in time a little bit, I shared just briefly a little bit about our broken home as a boy, and um, I've realized the last several years I've been on a healing journey. And, I think one of the advantages of becoming a Christian a little later in life, I was a month before my 35th birthday, is you do have a lot of life experiences under your belt.
Mhm.
And I always tell people when it comes to training or counseling or your marriage counseling, things like that, I can tell you what not to do because I've done most of that. But it does come in handy that you've grown because you're not knocking anybody that comes to Christ young because all my kids did when they were young.
Sure.
But you have some life under you, which is good. But even coming a Christian at 35 years old, I hadn't dealt with all my baggage of abandonment and mistrust and unforgiveness.
Right.
And of course, the scriptures command that. But I needed some tools to help me to do that. So, anyway, I won't get into all the tools, but I've just been on this journey of healing and healthier mindset that aligns with who God says I am.
Mhm.
And I wanted to do a podcast showcasing people that have testimonials, stories of overcoming, major obstacles in their life and how they did it. And I just, you know, we don't have time to go into all of it. Being a pastor, being a nonprofit executive, having my own business, and a wife and 3 kids, I was like, I don't have time to do a podcast the right way. And I had a name for the podcast. It was going to be called Trials to Triumphs. And as I talked to more people about what I had overcome, uh, this word worthy or unworthy was more what I was feeling for many years. Unworthy of God's love, unworthy of other people's affection. You know, I was like, wow, well, if I've experienced a lot of that, there's probably a lot more people out there not talking about it that have experienced it too. And you know what? I'm gonna take the gamble, if you will, that that's going to be the case. And it's turned out that has been the case, that there's a lot of people that have felt unworthy in their lives. And the group, I haven't put a percentage to it, but I'd say it's probably 70% women. And I'm grateful for that. I'm not surprised by it. Women are much more in tune with their heart and their emotions sometimes. Men, they may feel unworthy, unloved, but they're not as quick to talk about it.
Right.
But what I am excited about is we have had some men do interviews with us. We've got some more lined up. For those of you that don't know, Jay's going to be a guest on the You Are Worthy Network. We're doing a little swap in here, which I'm excited about.
Forward Yeah, it's gonna be
I,
great.
I just, I, I just, I just think we've got to talk about these things. And so everybody I interview, it's a little bit like your show in that it's not scripted. I mean, I have an idea where it may go, but it's not. I don't give them the questions ahead of time. We talk about what they're passionate about, what they love, what they're doing to serve people. But I always throw in a question of, well, there must have been a time where you didn't feel so worthy, or a time where life wasn't like this. And everybody's always, oh yeah, they're quick to say, yeah, there's several times like that. And
Yeah.
I have them always share one. And I think it's when they share that part of their journey that it resonates with the audience and people like, I can relate to that. And then the thing we do is our subtitle of our group is Your Story's Not Over Yet. And
Mm.
different variations of that. God's not done with your story yet is
Yes.
really what that means. And so he wasn't done with my story. He wasn't done with your story. And he's not done with any of our listener stories either.
Amen. And I think you're hitting it right on the head because, I mean, I remember having this conversation, and it wasn't the first one, with a young lady that had been, she's a sister of one of the individuals that'd been in our church for a while, and she started coming. And I really wanted to talk to her. I had decent rapport. I really wanted to share with her just about God and about a relationship with God. So I didn't want to, to be in a compromising position. So we just went to a Starbucks, a real public type of situation. And I was just having a conversation with her about faith and where, what did she understand about the word and all those type of things. And we got to the question about, well, if today was your last day on earth, I mean, where would you want to, want to be? And she said, "Well, I'd want to be in heaven, but I don't think I will be." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because I just exactly what you're saying here." She goes, "I don't think I'm worthy to go there." And that's when we got to have the great conversation about, well, yeah, none of us would be, but Jesus is a different story, and God has a different view of you than you're having
Mm,
right now, and so great conversation. And she did end up, a few months later, the Lord really worked in her life. I mean, it wasn't, it was a process of time, but it's a wonderful thing, and a real change started to take place. So I've heard it often. I'm sure you have as well, where people just have that feeling. So I think your title there is fantastic. Um, so you mentioned about your podcast and what you're trying to do with that, and as the ministry with the You Are Worthy and the Worthy Method and all of those type of things. So where do you see now, as we're continuing along this journey, what are the big things that God is kind of revealing to you as you go? I mean, obviously you're pressing forward. I think none of us actually know the complete answer to this, but what are the biggest things on your radar right now as far as your priorities in ministry and in life?
oh my goodness. Yeah, I've got so many hats. It's crazy. Well, I want to continue to serve where I'm at. Uh, as long as God wants me to serve in that capacity. I love helping the people in the local church.
Mm.
I have noticed that uh, God wants me to serve people beyond that as well. And I've seen that when we've done workshops with our nonprofits, some small, some a little larger. I mean, we haven't talked about the nonprofit much, but for example, just briefly, we did a nonprofit for we did a workshop for an entire church in Florida a couple of years ago, and that was 220 people.
Mm.
And I'm like, we saw the impact of that. I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is good. And then I'm just scratching the surface with the You Are Worthy network. Matter of fact, it's interesting we're having this conversation because I can praise God today. We just eclipsed our first milestone. We passed 500 members today, which I'm super excited about. Needless to say,
It's
uh,
wonderful.
and that's and that's happened in just 5 weeks.
That's fantastic.
Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I'm definitely excited. And I've done 12, 13 interviews. I've got to be smart about it because I am working
sure.
full time, but I'm trying to do two, three, maybe push it to 4 a week. I'm loving hearing other people's stories, and I see um, being able to eventually help people with some coaching programs for sure, and some public speaking outside the church as well. But right now inside the network, Jay, it's just serve. It's just about highlighting what the good folks in the network are doing. Like I said, what they've overcome, what they're passionate about. Over time, people are going to see my face. They're going to see it every single time. We're like, they're probably going to get sick of my face, in my mug all the time. But I understand how that works. Over time, they're going to want to know, well, what does Steve have to offer too? And I want to be able to prepare to serve them how the Lord wants me when that time comes. But right now, I'm just serving.
Yeah, and I think I'm sure you're finding out that as you hear people's stories, which are amazing, and I think what makes it so amazing is I've had the same experience with this, is that truly all these people's stories are his story. You know, it's the story of God and how he's worked in the life. You see so many common threads, and yet at the same time, you see diversity in the stories, and yet it all just shows his fingerprints all over it, you know, just even in the
Mhm.
tough times and all the way through. And it's so amazing. When I started this podcast, I never dreamed that it would be as amazing as it is to just kind of hear that and see the working of God in your life. So the You Are Worthy Network, which you say now has already grown in a very short period of time. Tell us a little more about that. How does someone look into that? What does that involve?
Yeah, it's super easy. The process is super easy. I mean, if you're interested, which I hope you are, all you have to do is go to your Facebook page, go to the search bar and type in You Are Worthy Network,
Mm.
and it'll pop right up. You'll make a request to join, and I will let you in. Or, if I happen to know you, I'll send you an invite, and then you either decline it or accept it, and then you're in. And right now, mostly because of my schedule, it's just the one-on-one interviews, and I periodically will remind people either at the end of an interview or I'll create a post for it. If you're interested in being interviewed yourself, that's what it's all about.
Yeah,
I will make time for you. Be patient with me because it is starting to grow, and I have to manage it wiser and wiser all the time. But
sure.
that's really what it's all about. But where it's heading, in addition to that, is I'm looking at doing roundtable discussions with small panels of maybe 4 or 5 people,
Mhm.
maybe later down the line it'll advance beyond that too. I've definitely got some dreams for it, but just trying to manage it with my schedule. The one-on-one interviews is where it's at, and then we'll advance to roundtable discussions as well.
Awesome. So it sounds like you're going to be a little bit busy.
Yeah. I
But
was just telling somebody today, this is definitely taking on a life of its own, but it's very good. It's a labor of love for sure.
well, I know as a Maxwell certified trainer and speaker, isn't, if I'm correct here, isn't one of Maxwell's main teachings to find a way to bless as many people as you can every single day?
That's definitely his heart for sure.
Yeah, and so I think it sounds to me like that's what God is giving you the opportunity to do through the You Are Worthy Network and the other ministries that you're involved in and everything. It sounds like, some people say, well, I know he even teaches you can't have things I mean, there has to be certain things that you prioritize in your life that are the main things. I guess if it falls into the category of blessing and helping people, then it kind of, even though it seems wide, it narrows down in scope to that's one of the most important things to do, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about serving people, right? Jesus came to serve, and I find myself occasionally complaining about the lack of energy and bandwidth, and then it's then I realize I have to insert gratitude. I have to, gratitude we tend to think is an emotion, and it is, but it's also a choice.
Yeah.
And just like loss or bitterness, unforgiveness accumulates, gratitude accumulates too. If you're ever, on a side note, if you're ever in a bad day or a bad moment, if you can discipline yourself to just jot down 3 or 4 things you're grateful for, even if they're the most simplistic.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the fact that you've got hot water in your shower today, and it's 20 degrees outside and 6 feet of, 6 inches of snow.
Yeah.
uh Grateful for that, grateful that you had something in the fridge for lunch.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, after just naming 2 or 3 things like that, you could come up with a list of about 50 in a few minutes. But you got to choose it, and it'll force the other out. So what was my point in all that? Sometimes I have to discipline myself when I'm complaining about the lack of energy or bandwidth, that I don't have to do this, I get to do this.
Big difference, right? It's a privilege to do it. And I mean, when we think about it from a believer's standpoint, I mean, I've said this a few times. My kids don't always like it when I say it, but I've stood up from the pulpit and I said, you know what? I'm good. God's given me everything as far as, I mean, I know where I stand with him by his grace, not my, my own merit, but I know where I stand with him. And I mean, I think of the passage that Paul does, in Philippians, where he's saying, "For me to live as Christ and die as gain," and he goes, "And I'm torn. I'm torn." It's like if I
Mm.
wasn't here, being with him is actually far better. I'm good. I would be good. I'm here because it's more needful for you. Isn't that really the reason? We're not still here because we need to be at this point. We're still here because others still, God has said, I still want you to be my hands and my feet in other people's lives.
Yeah, that's right. And we can relate to Paul a lot, right? It would be awesome to go up with Jesus right now,
Mhm.
but we're not there yet. That means there's still work to be done. And it's as his ambassadors, we're to bring the kingdom of heaven down here, be his hands and feet, like you said.
Right. Now, let me ask you this before I mean, we're going to start wrapping up in a couple minutes here, but before I ask you an open question at the end, so I'm giving you a little warning and
I
heads
catch
up on
that.
that one. Okay. Before I ask you this open question on the end, I want people to be able to know how to best contact with you. You already mentioned going on the Facebook group and all that. Is there also other good ways to directly contact you?
Yeah, good question. You can find me, like we talked about earlier, in the You Are Worthy Network. I do have a website, very difficult website, stevewormer.com. So if you can spell my name, then you can find the website. And those are probably the two best ways.
Gotcha. And I'm sure that you're really good at getting back to people, which is definitely a plus. Well, let me get to my open question. And by the way, for those of you who are watching, we're going to have all of Steve's info listed in the bio, including some links to some different resources and places that you can connect with him. So we want to make sure that we have that. But here's my open question to you. Okay. We've talked about divine appointments and the things that God gives us the reason to be around. Whenever somebody watches this, somebody may watch this in the very near future of the time it's being recorded right now, or it could be 2, 3 years down the line. We don't know.
Mhm.
But we do know that the time that they watch it is the time that God wants them to watch it. And so they may be going through something right now. I just want you to imagine who might be, have the Lord lead you to who might be listening to this currently right now. And maybe they're in a place where they're not feeling worthy. They're in a place where they feel that maybe they've just messed too many things up, that they don't deserve to even have a relationship with God. They don't deserve to even have relationships with people. They just feel like they failed in so many ways and maybe without hope. What is it that the Lord would be leading you to kind of share with them right now?
Let me condense my thoughts because there's so much there. I can tell you from my experience that I can relate to what Jay just said. Not feeling worthy, um, not feeling loved consistently, abandoned. And I made poor choices too. Don't get me wrong. I can't point the finger at everybody else because I got four pointing back at me when I do that. But here's what I want to encourage you with. Whatever you've been through, whatever you are going through now, if it's not pleasant, I'm sorry, but it doesn't change the fact that you are worthy of love, respect, and success in your life. And that hole that likely is in your heart right now, it can only be filled by God. And God says in the book of Jeremiah that if you search him, he will show you things that you can't possibly fathom. That's waiting for you. I didn't believe it And so you're like, well, I don't know if I believe you, Steve. You can't deny a changed life. Forget about mine for a second. You guys, if you're listening today, you've probably heard many of the guests on Jay's show. Maybe you know Jay personally. But when you see all these different kinds of folks from different walks of life, different types of backgrounds, different education, different social upbringing, when they all have a similar story of how God redeemed them, you can't deny the power of that. And He loves you. He created you. He knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. My brain can't comprehend all of that, but I get the thought behind it. That's how much He loves you. He knew you before you were conceived. And He's the one that can give you life and life to the full. Keep searching for Him. He won't move from you. He will meet you more than halfway. So my encouragement to you is read Luke 15. Read all three of those parables. And after you read them, just say a simple prayer to God that you want to know Him better and that you believe, and ask Him to show you more, because I believe He will. So I want you to have hope listening to this, because hope is not dead. Hope is very much alive.
Amen. Great message. Message that definitely is needed today. And it's my prayer as people hear that they will really just, take those words to heart, because those words are founded on truth. They definitely come from the Word of God and all the principles that you shared right there. And I love the fact that you can speak with authority on this, because God took you through it as well, and so you're speaking from firsthand reference. So if you heard that message right now, I would encourage you to do exactly what Steve said. Go back into Luke 15. Those are great places to read and just see God's tremendous love for you, and the lengths that He was willing to go to reach out to you, even though we weren't necessarily reaching out to Him. And so it's just amazing, amazing, amazing. I definitely encourage you to get on the You Are Worthy network, to follow that. Also connect with Steve if something that he said today has touched you. And I know, I can say from what I do know in the time that we've spent together already, that I would definitely encourage you to reach out to him, because it would be a great and positive interaction that will be beneficial to you. And also, I look forward, we're going to be doing some events together as well with our friend Jerry as well, right? Coming up. And you can look on our Facebook feeds. You're going to see those advertisements. These are free. We have a free event coming up, and no strings attached, right? We're not, there's not going to be some big, huge upsell in this event coming up or anything like that. We just want to connect with you. We just want to share some great things that are going to benefit you. So also go on there. That way you're going to hear more from Steve as well. And also our friend Jerry is a great guy also. So you're definitely going to benefit from that event. So God bless each one of you. Share this podcast episode with someone that you know will also encourage. And also please subscribe on whatever platform you're watching or listening to right now. This has been the Audacious Faith Podcast, and we look forward to meeting with you again sometime soon. May God bless you and your family. God bless.